relentless hustlers, the game changers, and the unapologetic leaders who've conquered the business world? This is Pushing the Bar, where success isn't just a destination, it's a journey. We'll get into the minds of the relentless hustlers. You're about to get the real and raw truth about the highs, lows, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the entrepreneurial battlefield. You know, the place where dreams clash with reality and success is earned, not given. Shawn has been in the trenches, from a Verizon wireless salesman to building a damn tech empire worth millions.
Damn!
He's seen it all and lived to tell the tale. No sugar-coated fluffy crap here. Just raw, real-world advice served straight up. We're pushing the bar because success, it ain't gonna push itself. Now, here's Shawn Torres.
What's up, everybody? Shawn Torres here. I got a gentleman here that I met back in September, I think it was, at a conference. Me and him, I can't even remember how the conversation even got started, but I do remember that he was at his booth at the conference and was reaching out and was I guess leaned over. We started to chat, and I just thought it was cool that he's the CEO of his company and he's still hustling and growing his business. Something about that with me resonates well. But Baxter has built a great business and has some really cool, interesting things behind him. And I just felt like it would be good to have him on the show, talk about himself, his business, some of the things he's done, from experience in private equity to lots of boards, to being a CEO of a payment processing company, processing how much money, Baxter?
A few $100 million?
Yeah, a few $100 million. So
small change.
Yeah, in a very crowded space, but going after it in a different way. And I just felt like it was good to get him here to talk about his journey. I'm super intrigued to learn about all these boards because I just love the fact that you've done all that. So I'm excited to learn a little bit today. But Bax, I don't know if you want to do an intro, man. Talk about yourself,
sure.
What you're about.
Yeah, totally, Shawn, and appreciate your time and appreciate the audience's time. And I distinctly remember we were at Build It Live. I came up to you and the energy that you have for your business, the energy, enthusiasm about your career and trajectory and growth is incredible. And we initially hit it off because we were talking about acquisitions and M&A. And obviously that's an exciting topic in the IT services space and in the MSP space. And what you said to me was I think a good lesson for a lot of people, which is listen, these purchase prices seem really, really high, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million bucks, but net of debt, net of taxes, my take home it's not going to be what I want it to be. And it's amazing how a lot of businesses have pursued those different paths. And, at the end of the day, I don't know ultimately from a, cash take home perspective, they're always the right move. There's certainly a lot more growth left embedded in some of these businesses. And if you're growing your business 10, 20, 30% year on year, the time value of money is super valuable. So if you can keep that compounding up for 5-10 years, your business is going to be exponentially more successful and much larger outcome for yourself. And that growth trajectory has kind of been my entire focus, my entire career, right? Is every year, how do you continue to up level your career? How do you continue to give back to other people as part of that journey? And I've started my business in finance. So I started in investment banking, working on modeling, working with different clients, booking trips for my partners, for the people that I looked up to. And then I joined a private equity fund where I had much more experience investing in businesses, running different businesses. I was the interim CEO of a fast casual Mediterranean restaurant, which is a funky, unique experience. I was the interim CEO of a plastics injection molding business, manufacturing plastic boxes, sat on the boards of a number of different businesses, much on the smaller end of the spectrum in terms of revenue. So these businesses average 10, 20, 30, $40 million of revenue. And then I joined a very large private equity fund called Apollo Global in 2017. And Apollo had invested heavily in the IT services and MSP space. So Apollo, acquired Presidio back in 2013, and then acquired huge company, but an even bigger company acquired Tech Data in 2019, 2020, and then merged Tech Data with TD SYNNEX. And I spent a lot of time when I started at Apollo focusing on technology services and IT services, and focusing specifically on the MSP space and really understanding the ecosystem, the businesses, the landscape, the local players, the regional players, the national players, the global players. And I was at Apollo for about 4.5 years and really found this amazing opportunity around payment processing for MSPs. And so I left Apollo, left a pretty cushy, exciting, high-paying job to say, screw it. Let's go out on your own. Let's build something, that you can, see as really valuable and pays back in momentous numbers if it is successful. And so I started Alternative Payments about 3.5 years ago now to ultimately come up with a better payment processing experience for MSPs, for IT services companies, that's fully integrated with your PSA, with your accounting software, that provides your end client a much more simple, streamlined way to pay, and really saves you the manual time that a lot of other companies are investing in payment processing. And so we've scaled that business from 0 employees to now just under 30, 0 customers to 250 about right now, continuing to grow, 0 payments processed to a couple hundred million, and are continuing to grow very quickly because, the status quo in the space is just very, very manual, and it's very much checks. And, I'm surprised you don't have any mail on your desk over there, Shawn, but, you're getting the check in the mail, you're cashing them, you're entering them in your PSA, you're entering them in your accounting software, and the times should really change. And the times will change, but it's a slow moving ship. So that's a little bit about me and my business.
No, I think that's awesome, man. That you were willing to take the risk and jump out of what you were doing in a very comfortable spot. I think that's what a lot of people, don't do a lot of the time is they get into a career, they're having some success, and then they kind of just don't ever take that leap and get out there and go after it. So congratulations on doing that. And it's not like you can't go back and get a job if you needed to, right? But I don't know. I guess I kind of did the same thing. I never thought about like, what if I didn't succeed today? Like I really didn't, and still don't have a plan B. It's kind of like you got to make it work, and you got to focus, and you got to grow it. And it's so intriguing, man. Like I didn't know as we were getting into this space, like what did success look like for us? What was like the standard, I guess you would say, from a growth perspective, that most MSPs are growing? I had no clue. I never really focused and paid attention on that. I'd love to get your insight, kind of talking through some of that. Looking at our growth rate, it's been ranging anywhere between 30 to 60% year over year. Even at large scale, last year we grew 26% year over year. And I just like, when you look at the space and you go to these conferences and I meet all these IT owners in our tech space, and they're like, how are you doing it? What are you doing different? And I don't know, man. I still ask myself, like, what are we doing different? I was meeting with a person today, and we were kind of just talking about just the sheer amount of onboarding we have coming in, and just like pipeline, and like the opportunities that are coming our direction. Like they keep coming. And I think it's just an outcome of doing good work. Right. So like in your business, man, like what is getting you the scale? What's getting you the growth? Like what's working for you? How are you one, how are you getting the business? And two, like what are you doing you feel that's like setting yourself apart from, your big major players in your space? Like what?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, in my opinion, it comes down to customers. And if you do work, you wake up every morning, you want to serve your clients, you want to provide the best experience, you want to be aligned with your customers, listening to their feedback and implementing their feedback, right? It's one thing to say, hey, Shawn, what do you want me to do? It's another thing to say, Shawn, what do you want me to do? And then Shawn actually sees us putting this into fruition and building the product that allows you to be successful. And I think that's where there's a disconnect. There's a lot of people out there, in the MSP space and other services space who say, Shawn, tell me everything that you could want. And they sound like great sounding boards. But if you don't actually see that individual take action and improve their product and improve the experience, then that's where there's this disconnect. And that's where I think growth starts to stall. And the MSP space is a unique space. It's very community driven. And we all need to do a better job in terms of really, ensuring that our service to our customers is as strong as it can be, and make sure that the customers realize that we're going, the next level to ensure that they're happy, that ensure that everybody at the company's happy, right? I think there's another disconnect where, let's say, you're my customer, I'm serving you, but I'm also serving all your other employees. And, I may turn a face on with you because you're the CEO of Telecom and you're the man and you bring all this energy to the table. But if I'm not holding myself accountable across my own organization that's serving your client or serving you as a customer, but then also serving, your assistant or the person who's delivering the service, again, there's a disconnect. And I think there's a lack of strategy and cohesion across the business. So, the thing that we've really been focused on, which I think there's a lack of in the payment space, is customer support and customer service, and ensuring that we're solving not only just the payment process, right? Like, hey, my customer needs to pay via credit card. Like, that's an easy problem to solve. But, we're also solving reconciliation. We're also solving customers who haven't paid and providing features and services whereby if you do need help collecting, we're solving that. If your client has having a tough time paying on a month because there's a cash flow imbalance, we have a financing product. So we're trying to bring all these tools to really provide you the best experience and provide your end clients the best experience and hit it from all angles. It's the same thing, the analogy in the MSP space is like being an MSP but not providing cyber, right? Like you got to have the repertoire to provide the best platform and the best service. And sure, maybe day one you're not going to offer the best cyber package relative to another competitor, but you got to put your toe in the water to start to get those reps and then start to iterate and start to improve.
Yeah, improve it, make it better. I would agree.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people fail in that space, in that realm, and especially in this space, and they don't, they get so caught up in like, oh, well, it's got to be perfect, and it's got to be this, and it's got to be that, and not listening to your client and educating them on how it can be different and what you can do for them. I look at us as an example, and it's like, I meet so many companies that have been doing this for 20 something years, and having an issue scaling the business. And it's 9 times out of 10, when I look at it and I start talking to these people, it's them. Like they are the reason that the business isn't scaling, and they don't hold themselves accountable to that. And change is like, I think you're right, man. I think change, I've had so many people, even employees here, that have told me over the years, like, Shawn, man, you and Jimmy, y'all changed so much. And it's like, well, yeah, like because the industry's changing and the world's changing, and like it can't be status quo, unfortunately. And it's an ever improving process. I've never stopped trying to improve. Like we literally constantly improve, and try to like eat our own dog food. Like we literally just got out of a session. We hired a guy that runs our client success division because we felt like we weren't doing a good enough job servicing our client from an account management perspective, and you needed that accountability of service, delivery, projects, as well as like expansion on the internal base, and like where did that live? And we tried using sales folks to do it, but then they were lacking the ability for follow up for service related issues and making sure. So we really made a huge investment. We brought a director on. It was an apartment that didn't exist and built it out. And Ben is incredible, man. He's our director of client success and is just constantly improving. And like the meeting I had right before coming in to do this podcast, like Ben got up and like did a like quarterly strategy review with us and leadership, and like showed us like what they're doing with our client base. And like, man, it was just like, it was so eye opening, and whiteboarding out how we want to use tech in order to grow our business and continue to scale, and like looking at where those things come from. So it's like, I think people forget that, and they don't want to make the investments that like that department right now is costing me close to $700,000 a year. But then also look at what it's maintaining, and like, as it's helping improve that client experience, right? Because at the end of the day, like,
Totally.
I think that's the difference maker. I think that's what you're trying to say. What you do differently is like the client experience. And that's what it's about, is like I've been using Connect Booster for, I don't know, since I've been on ConnectWise. So since 2018, and it's like, why, what is the difference? And again, they've never reached out and said, hey, here's what options we have. Like, how's it working for you? What should we change? And like getting that feedback.
What do you need?
Yeah. Like, what do you need? Like,
what can be improved?
Right. What are the pain points? Like, what could be better? And I think that's like, I look at, we have taken so many people away from their current MSP over the past 4 years, a ton, about 800,000 a month worth, right? So you think about that, it's a lot of money, right? In a very short time frame. And I just got to do what they weren't doing. Like,
Totally.
And that's what I try to preach. Like, I have all this data stored of all of this, like, faults that the MSPs were doing, whether if it wasn't managing backups properly, whether it wasn't building a client success team that was truly focused on implementing technology into the business and helping scale efficiency, growth, all the different things that it can do for a company, building better strategic partnerships with other platforms to help integrate into certain industries to help them evolve, using AI and all these things, right? And it's like, yeah, I think in our space and in just the tech space alone, whether if you're a software as a service, a platform as a service, service industry, whatever, like if you're not evolving and changing your business, like you're not doing yourself justice on an ability to scale,
Yep.
and
I think one of the things that you hit on, right, is it's the cohesion from sales to onboarding to deployment to feedback loops, right? And I think one of the issues in this industry is people are like, "Hey, I won the deal. It's done. I'm good. Done. Like it's MRR. It's in the bank, baby."
I've been there. Like, as an owner. Like,
we all have, right? We all have.
And not looking at like, what does that investment look like to make sure that you have that retention, and that, like, at the end of the day, for me, it was always like, yeah, retention's important to me, right? But I also want to make sure that like the people that are paying me are getting value out of what they're paying for, more than just like, I don't want to just fix your computer and your printer. Like, I just that is so commoditized and like it just I don't know. It's not attractive. But when I look at like integrating into a business and like really looking at their workflow and how they operate and like what KPIs are they managing internally and how can we implement systems that allow them to have visibility into the KPIs that they need to look at to run their business efficiently as it scales. And it's like
Yeah.
when you can really start getting into that by using, Microsoft Power Apps and all the different ways of giving them insight in their business. Like it's crazy when I go to a business and I look at how like they don't manage KPIs properly and they don't have any. And I was listening, a good friend of mine sent me this podcast and I'll have to send this to you. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
He was talking about M&A and how in last year M&A was down about 20%. The year before that, it was down, and obviously it's down from that year in 2021 where it was just astronomical, right? There was so much going on, and how the private equity right now is being very strategic, and they're looking for companies that have KPIs. They're looking for companies that can have data. Data is very important, and even like we have one of our clients get acquired by a large private equity, and like meeting with them, like all the private equity is looking for is to implement data. I can get data. Like they just want data. And it's like, you really start thinking about it. And like, I think so many people forget how important data and trends are into the trajectory of your business. And as we've implemented EOS and got very granular on the data and constantly looking at like, what are those data points that are important? Contract profitability, your contract can be too profitable. Like you need to know that. Like if you're an MSP and you're not managing contract probability and like you're just looking at the ones that you're not making money on, like I would look at the ones that you're making a lot of money on and figure out why.
Yeah.
Like, are you not servicing them properly? Are you not doing the things that are necessary? Like that is eye-opening when you start to uncover and it starts to peel back the layers and really understand how your business is operating. And I think so many people forget that, when implementing strategy.
And getting, I think, into the business and really understanding what you can offer, right? I think a lot of people, you have a conversation and it's like, Shawn, hey, you're my ICP, you're a healthcare company, 50 employees, 10 million bucks of revenue, Microsoft, whatever it is. And they're like, okay, well, perfect. Here's my contract. And they don't actually do a good job of, here's my contract. Let me really understand what you need. But then, there's item A, B, C, and D that you can also offer them and provide value. And maybe, at the beginning, they're a little bit standoffish because you're just you're just building the relationship. But, 30 days later, come back to them and say, hey, well, I think item A may be a really good idea. And I think we get into this mindset of like overselling versus just like education and knowledge transfer. Like my whole position is like, I don't sell. Like I suck at selling. Like, I mean, I can try to sell if you really want me to sell. But, for us, it's all about, hey, what can we optimize? What's your current process today? How are you getting paid? Are you getting paid via credit card? Are you getting paid via ACH? How much money are you spending on payment processing? And just very simply, like, is there an opportunity for us to save you money? That money comes in hard dollars, right? Payment processing fees. It also comes in soft dollars, which is the time it takes for people to send out invoices and follow up. Comes in soft dollars in terms of the end client experience, right? Are there certain end customers who want to pay via check because they don't want to visit the portal, which, again, is not the fault of the end customer. It's really for the fault of the service provider for providing them a service or an end portal that they don't want to visit. They want to visit Facebook instead. Like, come on, guys.
It's just educating, right? And I think that's
totally.
It's interesting when you start looking at that and how do you show them. And I brought this up in a leadership meeting today. What is the most expensive piece for every organization. What's the number one expense? Every company. Headcount. People, right?
Yep.
And literally it's time. Like, I don't care what anybody says, it's time.
Totally.
So if you can give time back by using technology and allow that person to do something else at a very efficient manner, right? Like, and I think that's what people forget, man, is like, and look, even as a business owner, I think we all forget that is like, we start to lose insight of time. And if you're a CEO, a business owner, whatever, general manager, whatever, like you're looking at a P&L and your biggest expense there is going to be your people 9 times out of 10. And then how are you managing efficiency on those people? And like, what are they actually doing? Because when you start looking at utilization time with your staff and really fine tuning it, like we track everything via tickets, right? So we can really see what's going on and manage utilization rate. And like, we're not doing that so we can make sure you're working. Like,
you're not babysitting.
Like that's not why we want you to do that, right? We want you to do that so we can have an understanding. One, when do we need to make an investment and hire another staff member because your utilization rate is too high and you're going to get burnout in this space. Two, what do we need to make the hire just because of sheer workload, right? Like that you just maxed and you're overutilized. Are we underutilizing other folks that can help in other areas? Like, and even looking at like, I told Jimmy, my business partner recently, like, I want to do this across the board, even looking in finance, like, because like, what is your finance team doing that when you stress one of my best friends, Steven, who owns a very successful company, multiple companies. The guy is just a genius, self-taught, worked his way up and, owns a very, very successful company, coming close to, is over half a billion in revenue. So talking to Steven,
small business.
Yeah, not a small business.
Tiny.
Very large. And, Steven told me one day, and he said, Shawn, one of the worst things that a business owner can do and where we fail is we stress our accounting department. And then we wonder why we have mistakes in our payables. We wonder why we have mistakes in our receivables. We wonder why we have mistakes in our contracts and our vendor, everything across the board, because we have an understaffed accounting department. And you can't have two, right? You can't have understaffed and underqualified. Like if you're in that boat, like you're in trouble.
Breaks.
Yeah. Shit breaks. I've been there before. I made that mistake, right? Where you think you can do these things. And as you scale and grow the business, we have 8 people in our accounting department, right? Like, and I've talked to these MSPs that are half our size. And I'm like, well, how many people do you have in your accounting department? They're like, 1. I'm like, holy moly. Like, 1, that's a big no-no. And 2, like, how are you managing this efficiently? Like, there's no way that you're managing that efficiently.
It's a really interesting point, though, because on one side of the house, MSPs are like the most organized entities in the world, right? As it relates to tech delivery. And then on the other side of the house, it's more qualitative, right? People think, oh, well, 40-hour week, they spend an hour on accounting. It's like on one side of the house, you know exactly where people are spending your time. On the other side of the house, you have no idea. And I'm super focused on where I spend my time. Like I use time trackers. How many meetings am I in a week? How much time do I spend on a podcast a week? How much time do I spend on emails? And one of the things, for our business top down that I'm trying to, make everybody realize is not only is time is money, but it's a huge opportunity cost as it relates to what other projects you want to be building. And, from our business perspective, we keep track of engineering hours because it's, code that they're writing towards the code base. And so you have to. But then, we have another team of 15 or so outside of engineering. And how do you get everybody to have that mental mind share of, hey, if I'm spending time here, I can't be spending time there. If I'm not spending time selling, I can't be spending time here. And in the MSP space, it's funny because, relative to manufacturing, distribution, people have no idea what these people are generally doing. In the MSP space, people are really, really organized, really, really targeted for 50% of their business.
Yeah, but
and then the other 50% are 75%.
They don't manage accounting right. They don't manage sales right. They complain that they're not growing their business. I've had several of them tell me that they don't hire salespeople because salespeople don't make them money. And I'm like, well, I even broke it down so simple to a guy one day. I said, man, hear me out. Hear me out. He's like, man, I've hired salespeople and they don't make me any money. And next thing you know, I'm a year down the line and they ain't sold nothing. I'm like, well, that's your fault.
Yeah.
Like you're not managing them properly.
Yeah.
Like why?
Totally. And I think you got to look at yourself in the mirror, right?
Yeah,
it goes back to the prior conversation around improvements, right? So, I mean, the way I think about my business is in product and engineering, sales, customer success and customer support, and operations. Operations kind of falls into like everything strategic, finance, payment operations, making sure our customers are getting paid on time, everything. And within each organization, I mean, we have leaders within each organization, but where are the trains running on time within engineering? Where are the trains not running on engineering? And you could have the best tier 1 engineering team, but there's still room for improvement, right? I mean, you could have the best engineers, or techs at Telecom. There's still room for improvement.
Always.
Then you go to accounting and finance. There's still room for improvement, and making sure that you're empowering your leaders to make changes, to try things out. I think that's another big piece of the puzzle here is, people are scared to try new things. And, there is a saying, obviously, what ain't broke, don't fix. But, you got to iterate. You got to iterate.
Yeah. If they're not creating that change, like it's funny you say that. I was in my leadership meeting today and, I was talking to sales directors about reps not hitting quota and asking like, what's the plan? We're making a huge investment in the sales org right now. We got the largest sales team we've ever had. And it's funny, like today they were like, oh, well, we got to pip them. And I was like sitting there and I was like, all right, well, cool. Like, I guess if you're going to pip them, like I need to pip you. And like, I guess if you go 2 months in a row, like, should I just fire you? Is that what you're telling me we should do? Like,
yeah,
is that right? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, you just said that about them. Like, so like, that doesn't fix the problem. Like, let's get to the root cause and get a better understanding of what and why they're failing. And like, it leads down to pipeline. And like, are we managing pipeline properly? And how much pipeline are they adding? And it's our jobs as leaders for our employees to improve. And if we're not trying to improve them, of course, there's times where you got to let people go, right? But if you're not making a conscious effort to try to improve them and putting the effort and energy into it that's necessary, I know that I've made that mistake where I've not kept patience enough. And that's what I was telling this MSP owner. I was like, look, like, I see what you're saying, and you're right. You're spending money and you're looking for the return. I was like, but hear me out, man. If you can get that sales rep to sell $10,000 in business in a year, 10,000 in MR at a, just say post-service, 50% gross margin. And if in our industry, that's stellar, right? If your COGS are right, 50%, that means you got $5,000 a month. And if you're paying that rep $60,000 a year in base plus commission, you broke even in year one.
Yeah.
Now they look at you like, I said, and if they can sell 10,000 in a year, like they can do it. Like you can get them there. It's very simple to do. I was like, then what I want you to think about, man, is if you were to go buy a stock today and you were to inject $60,000 into it, and you knew that year 2, you could double your money on that stock, is that a good investment? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, it's the same concept. Like, yet we go buy stocks as investors and make 10% and we're excited. Like, so
Yep.
too many business owners don't look at employees as investments and assets in your business that you're making the investment in that is going to continue you to scale. And you're going to make good investments and you're going to make bad investments. That doesn't mean you stop investing. Because I'm sure you know this from being in private equity, that the companies and the people that are out there that are successful in the investment space, like you come from a banking and investment world, like you have to keep investing. Like it's just like on that podcast, they were talking about all this money that's in the market right now that all these people are sitting on. Like they're going to have to invest. Like it's coming. Like they have to. Like the money can't sit stagnant. Right. So
well, and let's use that analogy a step further from an investment perspective, which is $10,000 of MRR, right, at a 50% gross margin. So $5,000, $60,000 of gross margin annualized. And now let's apply a valuation multiple on that money. Yes. Right. So what does that trade in for the market? I mean, you probably know these numbers better than I do, but generally in the MSP space,
between 5 and 12x.
Yeah, so 5 and 12x. So let's use 5 to just be conservative, right? So you have $60,000 of annualized gross margin at 5x. That's $300,000 of value, right? So overnight, you've hired this guy for $60K. He's brought you a $10,000 contract, and your business increased in value by $300,000 on the low end. You take the 12x multiple. You're looking at $720,000 of valuation opportunity. And that's certainly like where my head is focused in terms of investing in sales. And year one's going to be tough. Like, imagine you jumping into my company tomorrow, it's like, holy shit. How do I, what are payments? Like, how does this work? I couldn't jump into your company. But if you can,
any business, right? Like any business, like so many people, I laugh all the time, man, because so many people are like, "Oh man, it must be great to own your own business and this and that." And like, of course, look, I love what I do. I'm very passionate about what I do. I get excited every day, when I come to work, and but I also know that like it isn't built for everybody, and that's okay. Like, because there's certain things here that people do that if I had to do that job, like I could never do it. And not everybody. And I think the world right now is in this like woke moment because of Instagram and all this social media bullshit that people think they want to be an entrepreneur. And they're like, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, well, yeah. Like, are you willing to go work for tons of hours, tons of time with no return? Like in 2009, when Jimmy and I started this company, we did $8,000 in sales in 2009 in a whole year, $8,000. In 2010, we did $64,000 in sales. So in 2 years, we didn't break 100,000 in top line revenue. Most people, I can tell you, is a very dark and scary place. Most people would have quit. They would have said, screw this shit. I'm going to get a job. And even today, at the scale and size we are now, there's still days where I'm like, holy shit, like this is a bunch, there's a lot going on. When I just look at my payroll every other Friday, like, I'm like, holy shit. Like I would have never, ever imagined like looking at that number and like I remember my last one went out, it was $321,000 last Friday. Right. And I'm like, holy shit, $321,000 in payroll. And like that number just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. Right.
Yeah, of course.
And I'll never forget a day like where I was like, man, if I did 300,000 in a year in sales, like I'll be ecstatic. Right. And now like we're doing that in payroll every other Friday. So it's, you got to mentally, I think you have to be mentally prepared for what that looks like. And managing that, right? That's why cash flow and what you fix is so important to a business. And so many people get hyper focused on the P&L. And it's funny, man. Like I still laugh today. Like we had a $5 million company. I didn't even look at the P&L. Like I just knew I needed to deposit more money than I spent.
Yeah.
It just
Well, it's a progression, right? And I think one of the things that I'm very focused on is being energetic, being enthusiastic, being excited to show up to work every day, and knowing that you're building a business, right? So if you start at $8,000 in year one, assuming you have the dedication, assuming you have the belief in yourself, assuming you're still excited and you love what you're doing, knowing that it's just building blocks, right? It's like a massive fucking Lego set that you're continuing to build on, and it's one of those boxes that just doesn't end, right? Because now you all of a sudden have this other extension, and that's what the entrepreneurial journey is about. And it goes back to yourself having the dedication, you hiring great people to support you. Sure, there are roles in your company that you wouldn't want to do yourself necessarily, or you wouldn't be able to do yourself for a number of different reasons. And then being true to your customers, right? And solving their problems and helping them and supporting them and iterating and then improving on the infrastructure and the system that you've built. Whether it's cash flow, whether it's P&L,
even
whether
just
it's technology, process, totally.
Onboarding of a client, like that evolves. And just when you think you got it right, like something happens and something changes, and now you need to improve that process. And I think that's where people don't continue to grow, because they get so like stuck on, we got to do it this way and like one way. And it's like, well, yeah, until you break that. And now what? Like now you got to do it again and again and again. And it never, like, that's some of the best advice. Again, my buddy Steven's given me, he's been a great mentor for me. Like, he's like, it never stops, Shawn. Like that never goes away. I don't care if you're a $5 million company or a $500 million company. If you're not trying to improve process and the way your client experience goes, like that is the most important piece is the client experience, the employee experience, right? Those two go hand in hand. Are so critical, right? And it's like they fix each other, because happy clients will also breed happy employees, and happy employees will make clients happy. Like it's you see that out there all the time. Like, make your employees happy and you'll have happy clients. Like, yeah, but like you also got to have happy clients that fit it too, because there is the wrong client. And I think so many people, including myself, make this mistake where I like think, oh, I can service everybody. Like I can do everything.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't. Like you gotta look at how you're servicing them and what that looks like, and what is your, like, not everybody's a good fit. Not everybody has the budget to fit for you, and that's okay too. And that changes too. Cause I remember the days where if you would ask me to go build the damn fence behind your building, I would have tried to figure it out and how to do it to make $1. Right.
Yeah.
And like, at some point you gotta look at like, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And I'm not saying you don't bend for your clients, because there's times where you do need to bend for them, but you also need to understand the outcome of that, right? And what does that look like? And sometimes you can't make that change for one client because you don't realize of the impacts that it makes to all these other clients that are out there. So it's looking at the global setup of your organization and really fine tuning it and letting it bleed down into it. And like, if you're having this one issue with one client that probably makes up a percentage of your revenue, 1%, like, would you go create change across the entire org for that one? Or would you just tell that one, it's not a fit, and like, you need to go find a new vendor? Like, if you got a bunch of people barking, like, you got a problem. If you got one, like, maybe it's that one. And it's always been my my theory, like even when selling to clients, like it's always intriguing to me when I hear them say, "Oh, I hate my vendor. Like they suck." Blah blah blah. I'm like immediate. Like for me, I'm like, tell me more about that. Like, well, why do
Yeah.
they suck? I never forget I had a client tell me one day, and they're actually a client today, so I don't want to use their name. Is a national company. I sat across from one of their vice presidents, and they were complaining about their vendor, and they were just dogging them, man. And I was sitting there with one of the sales reps because it's a very large account, and I went with him, and I remember sitting there, and I remember like letting the VP vent, right, and get it all out and talk about all the things that were wrong. And I said, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what does your contract look like with them? Like, what does that agreement look like? And he said, well, we're ABC company. We don't do agreements. I said, got it. I was like, so hear me out. Your expectations are for me to have inventory in my warehouse, dedicated technicians that come out to your site and fix your problem in a timely manner and resolve it quickly, but yet you only want to pay me when you need help. And I was like, well, we don't do that. Like, that's your problem. So your problem isn't the vendor. Your problem is you don't have an agreement to protect the organization. And if you're looking at the outcomes and the sunk costs that you're running into by not having an agreement, like we're not going to service you either. Like, why would I drop everything that I'm doing to service you? I don't care what the name of your company is, if you're not going to pay me every month. I mean, my analogy always is, and I've said this to clients, like, I'm not going to be your 2 a.m. girlfriend. Like, you have a financial obligation. We're going to get married. I'm looking for marriage. I'm not looking for one night stands. It's just not my thing. We don't do that. Like, and so many
it's one of the
they struggle with that, man. They want to go do the T&M work. And like, we don't do it, man. Like, we tell them no, like, nah, we're good. Like, we are 100% contractual engaged. And like, you hear these people say, oh, I don't need contracts because we offer the best service. Well, that's retarded. Like, no, you have to have
contracts. But it's a super important message, right? Which is alignment with your client base and having mutual respect. Because at the end of the day, what no contract and that type of approach implies is just there's not mutual respect. They think that they're the best company in the world and you're just a small fly on the wall, and
it's
transactional
that does
business.
Not
it's exactly, and that doesn't help you.
We're not transactional. Yeah. We don't want to be transactional. We don't want to do like one-time business with people and walk away. That's not what we do. It's not our model. And again, like, I'm not saying that doesn't work for other people, because it does, but I think you have to pick and choose what you like. I will tell you, we've walked away from very large clients that just wanted to not have a deep relationship, and we don't do well without having a relationship. Like, we're not that company. Like, even at our size today, like, we want to have a relationship with our client, and we want to know that we're here, and we want to know what we can do to improve and what they need to do to improve and how we partner together. And I think more companies that focus on that partnership, and partner with their vendors. I'm the same way with my vendors. I want to partner with the vendor, and I want to understand, and I'm willing to tell them if I'm not happy, and I'm going to give people an opportunity to make change. And look, I've made mistakes and punted too fast. Absolutely. Being impatient, but I think that, the better that we can get at that partnership and having that open dialogue, is critical, and I think that's why
one
you're
of the
winning,
things,
man.
Well, one of the things that we do, and we implemented this about 8 months ago, that I love, is what we call month-end reviews. And for every single one of our customers, we send them an email at the end of every month that clearly lays out what percentage of their revenue and accounts receivable are on auto pay. How is that trend over time? which customers are paying on time, which customers are overdue, to give them direct line of sight to the impact that we've had on their business. And
I love that.
I think unfortunately, probably only 60 to 70% of our clients like actually open the emails and really engage, but that's just a different issue.
It's hard,
psychological issues.
It's hard to get client
yeah, there's totally. And there's a lot of other things that people are focused on. But what we try to do is just align interests right from the start. And I've said this a lot to our customers and to the market, which is, what is the holy grail in terms of payments? The holy grail is having 100% of your revenue fully automated on a specific day of the month. And what that implies is that, if you're doing $2 million a month, that $2 million is basically nearly guaranteed to hit your bank account on whatever day of the month you're getting paid. And that gives you so much certainty in terms of cash flow, in terms of paying future bills, in terms of this month, next month, the following month. And if we can help facilitate that for your business, then there's just a tremendous amount of value that gets unlocked, because 1, you don't have to worry about the money coming in the door. 2, you don't have to worry about any of the accounts payable, any of the expenses, because you have the cash in the door. And then you can allocate, again, going back to time, you can allocate your time to strategically growing your business, focusing on sales, focusing on what's the technology offering that you're going to deploy for this specific customer. And that gives you the peace of mind. And so, it's all about, again, those kind of building blocks, right? Where when you were at 5 million,
how do you trend that up? Like, right?
So,
like how do you look at it?
So we have a lot of totally, and we have a lot of different like tips and tricks, right? I mean, we do this for a living, and so we see a lot of different businesses that different strategies. But one of the strategies that's worked day in and day out has been for all new customers within the contracting process, within the MSA, you implement a section that says you need a payment method on file. And when that MSA and that contract gets signed, your client goes into their payment portal and logs their preferred payment method, whether it's a credit card or a bank account. So for all customers on an ongoing basis, they have payment methods on file. Now that's for ongoing customers. The next bet or the next challenge is for historic customers and getting them to have payment methods on file and getting them to adopt autopay. And we have a whole onboarding strategy deck, really, that we deploy within our client base, educate them on why this is important, why that's important. But then more importantly is, how do you educate their end clients, right? And so we have this like really interesting dynamic where we need to educate our MSP customers, who then in turn need to socialize and educate their end clients. And what are the levers that we can help them pull to get those credit cards, get those bank accounts on file, and to automate this whole process? We've done a pretty good job, I would say. So our customers are paid on an average of 6 days after the due date across all of our hundreds of millions of dollars in which we process. Industry average is about 30, 35 days, but we want to get that down to 0 days. And so, when we hear these situations of, hey, Joe doesn't want to log into the end customer portal and wants to pay by check, I'm like, get me on the phone with Joe. I got to talk to Joe, and really understand, what is it? Is it the user experience? Is it the UI UX? Is it something different about Joe? Is it something that we can help facilitate? Because if we can get Joe on board and he's one of those kind of outliers in that he wants to pay by check, that story is going to play out multiple times over and over and over again. And if we can solve that 10, 20% of our customer base or our customers' client base that's still paying by check, again, we can add a lot more value to our customers and continue to iterate and continue to improve.
No, I would agree, man. I think it's super important to any business is understanding how that cash is coming in. Because again, a lot of people don't realize like just because I bill you doesn't mean you're going to pay me on X date, right? Like I wish it worked that way.
Yeah, me too.
You know, but I think building and educating that system for the client is crucial. You know, I think education is it all, and I think that's a difference maker, right? Is how do you improve that? How do you get it better? We've been blessed, and our receivables have never really been an issue. It comes and goes, but I will tell you, like we've adopted some of that as well as trying to get that auto pay on the front end. It's easier, Now,
Yeah.
look, some of the pushback. I think some of the pushback you do get from people is that they want to. It's something about signing that physical check and looking at their processes and the way they pay into their company. Because we still write a lot of checks here too.
No, and I again, I get it. I mean, we've had a lot of different situations, right? There's a business, we were just onboarding that one of their end client requires 2 signatures on the check for it to be cashed. And, there's intricacy there, right? And so immediately where my head goes is, well, how do we improve the end customer experience whereby they can actually authenticate it twice within an online experience?
I was just about to ask you that because I would think that would be awesome if like you could send a link to a client that their accounting department could do the first form of transaction and say, pay this bill, it's approved. And then it send another link to the owner, CFO,
Totally.
whatever. And then they click that. And then now
and say approve.
It drafts the account and drops the money in, even if it's not on a recurring day. Like just think about the mail and the issue we run into of like signing the check, putting it in an envelope, putting a stamp on it, mailing it, getting it, verifying it, depositing it, it hitting our account. Like how many days is that in between, depending on where you are? It could be 10, 12 days.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? Like how much faster would it be?
That's spot on, right? And so, we're thinking about right now, I mean, we have a series of different profiles for all different team members attached to MSP accounts. But then what kind of approvals can you create on the end client perspective? And those can be toggled on and off, right? And, our pitch really is that when we deploy this solution into any business, we're not deploying a generic payment experience. We're deploying the Intellicom experience. And if you want to pass credit card fees by customer, you can do so. If you want to turn off ACH payments because for whatever reason, you don't like ACH payments, you can toggle it on and off. If you want to offer your clients financing up to a certain term or whatever, you can do so. If you don't, you can toggle it off. And because all businesses are different, right? Like you may have a unique authentication process, and I'm not here to tell you that that's the wrong process. I'm here to try to work within the confines to develop a product that makes sense for Intellicom, makes sense for Intellicom's end clients, and then can be deployed at a really, really rapid rate with really, really strong support to ensure that you're getting exactly what you need and your end clients are getting exactly what you need.
What about on the payment side, like paying bills? Are you guys looking into that? I'll give you an example.
Should this be a product release call?
No, it just kind of hit me. Look, my brain works in a weird way, man. And I always think about like, what are the problems, right? And how do you fix them? It's always been that way. And I think that's why we've done so well as an MSP. Because like, I look at these people's businesses and I'm like, I don't care that your computers are broke. Like, I know that they're broke and I know we can fix that. But like, let's talk about your business and like, let's talk about like really what's going on. And let's get deep and like try to figure out ways to use tech to fix this. So I think about like all these things we pay, like, and I pay a lot on my American Express, and it stresses me. And like, because I give you an example, like at one time it was on my controller's card years back, and we stopped doing that because we had some theft happen with that. And now it's on Jimmy and I's card. But the problem is if I get hacked on my card, and I cancel that, I have all these auto payment systems that then start flagging that it's not getting paid. So I was talking with a friend of mine who owns a tech company in Dallas, and he was telling me that he uses this company that auto generates credit card numbers for each individual bill. And you get a portal, and now you set up your auto pay with this one number, and then it reconciles all back. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, man, that would be awesome from your perspective if you could also do the paying. And now I have a portal for receiving, and I have a portal for paying, and I can go in and auto generate these numbers to where if something does need to change from a credit card perspective, like I'm not at the mercy of like this one number that if it changes, like now I'm in a shit show trying to figure it out, you know?
There's a lot to do on the accounts payable side. The other thing that I think is really interesting in the MSP space is for most MSPs, they're utilizing ConnectWise and other PSAs for a certain portion of their payables, and they're syncing their payables to QBO or QBD or an accounting software to pay those. And the flow and the authentication that QBO and QBD work through is fine. It's not great. But so there's a lot of improvements that can be made.
Even syncing cogs across, man, there's a whole, like, we can sit here and talk for 3 hours on all problems.
No, but the virtual card structure is what you're referring to, right? Where I land, let's say in telecoms, a client, or not a client, I'm a customer of Intellicoms. I would whip up an Intellicom virtual card that would have a separate number. I'd hand it to you. I'd put a max on it to say, hey, my contract's $5,000 a month. Listen, Intellicom can only bill me $7,500 a month without further manual approval. I whip that up. I hand that to you, and that just runs. And so, to your point, if there's any fraudulent activity on that one credit card, it only affects your one vendor, which simplifies and streamlines the process a lot more. Now, the only challenge is you then have, for a business like Intellicom, you guys probably have 50 to 100 vendors. So you have to then manage all these individual virtual cards, which is a little bit pain in the butt. But there's a bunch of workflows. There's a bunch of new companies that are coming out with really interesting, ways to pay.
I've been seeing some of that.
Yeah. And
look, it's hard, man. I mean, you start managing a bunch, and it's a lot, and it creates other challenges, inside the business. And I think no matter what, I think that's what's cool about what you're doing. You'll be able to evolve your business, and like you're nimble enough to where like you can create the change. Like we're like, is a Connect Booster, is these big boys that are in the industry, are they're not gonna be the difference maker, right? Like their CEO is not looking at the experience of the client and like helping them understand like how they can improve it. And I think that's what's so cool about, what you do and what I'm doing. Like I told a prospect recently, I said, I don't care what you say. It was between us and Zoom, and they're trying to decide on who they're going to move forward with as a strategic partner. And I told the gentleman, I said, sir, I can tell you, man, Zoom's got some cool technology, and they have way more money than me. I will tell you that right now. I said, the thing that they will not do that I'm going to do is that I will give you my personal cell phone number. I am big enough to support you, and I can probably service you better than Zoom's going to service you just because of sheer volume. If you took their revenue per employee head, I bet it is much greater than mine. So therefore the amount of service that's coming in and the volume, they can't service the way we can. I said, and you're never going to get that person's number to be able to make a quick phone call and get something handled immediately. And people forget how important that is. I tell everybody that I'm big enough to support you, but I'm small enough to give a shit. Right. Like I do care. And it is not about the money to me. It's about the reputation and the way we want to service the client. And if I was to tell you that we were not going to have hiccups, I would be lying to you, because if you're telling your clients you're not going to have hiccups, you're lying, because you're going to have hiccups. It's part of it, right? So, yeah, man, I think it's incredible in what you're doing. I need to revisit with Frank to find out why we're not a client. So I like the
Well, no,
idea of just getting that email. You told me right there.
it's also about new features, right? And I think that's where the industry has kind of lost itself. They've gotten complacent within, hey, it's just about processing the credit card or processing the ACH. Like, we just released a new product that, again, is not for everybody, but it allows you to submit invoices to collections within 2 clicks.
I love that. Frank brought that up today, which is awesome.
And it's
which I think about scale, right? Like, bigger companies, they need that help. Like,
totally. And it's not, you don't want to work with somebody at third party externally and have to, fill out an application process and then follow up with them. Like, we streamline the process. Again, with our platform, it's on your fingertips. It can be utilized always. It can be utilized never. And things like this is really where our product is ultimately going. AP, sync, like, there's just so much to optimize and save time for the finance organization and for the accounting organization that in this industry, unfortunately, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for the market, people are just not innovating and bringing new, cool, clever things to the market and to the game. So we're super excited about our future. I'm super excited about your guys' future. I think, the new deal that you just mentioned to me, I mean, that's awesome.
It's incredible, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited on where the company's heading.
Yeah.
I got a lot of energy left in me. I got a lot of time.
I can't tell.
No, and I'm actually kind of down today because that whole Disney World trip. But I love doing what I'm doing. I saw the passion in you and what you're doing, and I just think it's a different way of looking at it. And I guess for the viewers, what everybody should understand is that just because there is a mousetrap doesn't mean you can't create a better mousetrap. If you look at video, Zoom was probably like the 150th video platform that existed.
Yeah.
And look what they did in a very short time frame. So I think people forget that and look at like what can you build. And if you're willing to put effort into what you're doing every single day and continuously improve, and I think the message today has been about constant improvement of your organization, looking at processes and ways you're doing things. So if you're not operating your business in that mindset of what can you do to get to the root cause of the issue that's going on and improve those things and make it better, don't be I call it the ostrich approach. Don't put your head in the sand and ignore those things. Look at those things. Be willing to constantly change and make improvements in your business, and you will get better. It's just like working out. It's just like anything else. If you go in every day and do the same exact exercise, like that will not yield the same results every time. So you have to be willing to make that change and get uncomfortable sometimes in order to grow. So I know we're coming up on our time here. And I know I could sit here and shoot the shit with you all day. Well, Baxter, if people are looking to connect with you, what's the best way to do it? I think you're a wealth of knowledge. I think folks out there in the MSP space that are looking for advice. Good, Taylor. Thank you for putting that up on the screen there. Connect with Baxter. The guy's got a ton of knowledge, a ton of information. Don't hesitate to reach out. Don't forget that, building a network is so important and building your business and lean into them. If you're looking for a good payment processing system, he's your guy. He can help you. And help you expand your business and grow. So,
it's been awesome, Shawn. Really appreciate it. I thought that was a great summary of everything that we talked about. And yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, my email is baxter@alternativepayments.io. You have my LinkedIn below there on the screen as well. And
any shows coming up?
Oh God, laundry list of shows. Let me get up here. Here we go. Producers Cup, Empower at the end of March. Channel Partners here just a couple weeks away in March. And then mostly in the fall. Taylor Business Group, Big, Build It Live, IT Nation. It's a bunch of shows that we're continuing to
well, good. I should
get
I should
out there.
see it.
So
No, I should see it. Some of
yeah,
those.
would love that. Yeah, we should get together elsewhere. So
yeah, definitely.
I'm traveling around. So, but thanks for listening, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Feel free to connect with me, and if I can be helpful at all, just shoot me a note. Happy to jump on the call and see if I can help.
Awesome. Thanks, Baxter. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate y'all listening. Look forward to our next episode. We got a great CEO that's going to be coming on. I'm excited to share his story and a bunch of information that'll help continue improving your business. So thanks. Have a great day.